A while ago I made a video guide providing an overview of the business management minigame in Yakuza Like a Dragon. One area that I feel I failed to explain adequately was how to be successful in the shareholder meetings. Though I had completed the minigame without focusing too heavily on these details, I wanted to make one more video to amend that previous guide and better prepare you for what's in store, so without further ado, this is how to defeat the shareholder meetings in Yakuza Like a Dragon. So here is an overview of the minigame within a minigame. Shareholders sit in a row and start asking your employees questions. It's very much like a boss fight in an RPG. Each shareholder is an enemy with a set amount of HP, and your chosen employees are your party. With the clock ticking, you must pick shareholders to ask their questions. You then select an employee to answer their questions. Answering their questions appropriately appeases them, reducing their resistance. You can then pick other employees to provide more answers. When a shareholder is finally satisfied, they are defeated. Ichiban is a wild card who can do major damage to the shareholder's resolve with an apology. Depending on how long you wait, Ichi's apology gets stronger and stronger. When you launch Ichi's apology, it deals damage to all shareholders while granting your party a boost. If you beat all shareholders within the time limit, you'll win full approval of the board. Even if you fail to do this, you'll still be fine as long as your approval rating is above 50%. In the meeting, you might have noticed a large bar in the center of the screen that reduces every time you pick an employee. These are your command points. Each employee costs a set number that will reduce the gauge. When the gauge is depleted, you'll just have to wait, which leaves you vulnerable to shareholder questions. Knowing about this gauge helps you more effectively select which employees to take to the meeting. When looking at employees, you'll notice that each have a number of stats. The important numbers are assigned to your employees as follows. Command cost, the number of points you lose when you pick an employee to act. This is a pretty critical stat. Charisma, the amount of damage your employees deal when questions are answered and shareholders are vulnerable. This is also important. And tenacity. This is basically your employee's HP. If you fail to answer a question satisfactorily, then employees can be struck and could be ejected from the meeting. Those with low tenacity are at the highest risk. However, keep in mind that if you apply the right tactics, you'll never be hit, so tenacity is not as important. The final thing to note is Ichiban's apology, which charges up automatically in the bottom right-hand side, getting gradually stronger as time goes on. The only thing that you need to concern yourself with is when to use it at the right time, but more on this in a bit. So when choosing employees for the meeting, you should always aim to have one employee of each color. This covers you in every scenario. To simplify, the vast majority of the time you should pick a green employee, a blue employee, a red employee, and a fourth employee of any color with high charisma and low command cost. Every character should have high charisma and low command cost. Try to balance charisma and command, but command is slightly more important than charisma. You should also aim for employees with a command cost of less than 10. A good example of this is Omelette the Chicken. He only costs 5 command points to use, and while he doesn't have great charisma, his low cost will make him stronger than most other blue employees early on. Though there are other employees around town you can recruit in this game, the normal employees already available within the minigame will be more than sufficient to finish the minigame campaign as long as you follow the right tactics. So here's what you should do before each meeting. Before heading in, guns blazing, see if you have any employees that are more appropriate for the task than the ones you've already chosen. Just to reiterate, you should be looking for a good balance between high charisma and low command cost. If you have an employee with higher charisma and lower command cost, swap them out. You can also check your colors. As explained, you want one employee of each color, and for the fourth, you can choose based on the shareholders that will be sitting in on the next meeting. For example, if there are 2 red shareholders, it might be a good idea to bring an extra blue employee. Lastly, you might have already intuitively understood this, but it's always good to go out of your way to improve the morale of your employees and your total staff before the meeting. Doing so puts you at a better start in the shareholder meeting with plus 10% approval. You can get other bonuses to your approval based on the sales and net worth in the previous period, but I wouldn't worry too much about this. When you first start out in the shareholder meetings, you'll be up against about 3 different shareholders. Later on, as the business management minigame continues, you'll start going up against 5, with one shareholder much stronger than the others. So when starting out, remember not to forget the rock, paper, scissors relationship between the colors. Know that the guide is always displayed on the screen at all times. When the meeting starts, pick your first shareholder, note the color of the speech bubble, then answer with the employee that can destroy the question in one go. If the question is green, pick a red employee. If it's red, pick a blue employee. If the question's blue, pick a green. Remember, if the ticking clock is adding too much pressure, you can always pause the game to decide your next move. After the question has been answered to the satisfaction of the shareholder, their weakness will appear and you can start a counterattack. In many cases, it's the same color as their question. On the left side of the screen, the game will show you which color to pick where it says counter chance up. You can always look there quickly to decide your next move without having to work too much out mentally. Now pick the character with the correct color and attack over and over until you run out of time. Bonus damage increases with each attack, which in most cases will lead to a KO. If the shareholder still isn't knocked out, you can switch over to the next best character with the highest persuasiveness. If you still run out of time, no worries, you can finish them off next time. After counterattacking, always remember to check your command bar to see how many points are left. If your gauge is a little low, wait a little while before attacking again. But what if things still aren't going your way? Well, that's where Ichi's apologies come into play. So you might have noticed that as the shareholder meeting goes on, Ichiban's apology level continues to charge. There are 3 different levels of strength. At level 1, you deal a little damage to all the shareholders. At level 2, you deal a little more damage, incapacitate them, and restore some of your command gauge. And at level 3, you deal max damage to all shareholders. They become incapacitated for even longer, and your command gauge becomes fully recharged. You can use the apology when your command gauge gets low, but you'll want to be strategic. If you can get to level 3 if you hold on a little longer, it's definitely worth doing so. It's recommended not to waste your level 1 apology. Using the level 3 apology near the end of the meeting should be enough to finish off any holdouts. So here's a summary of all the tips we've gone over so far. Always auto-care all of your employees before a meeting. Pick employees with low command costs and high charisma for your team. Ensure you have one of each color type on your team. Check the color of the speech bubble when choosing an employee to answer. Pause if you forget the weakness and strategize. And use Ichi's apology to restore command points. And that's all I have to share for now. For my next videos, I'll be making some guides on the minigames in Yakuza 0, which in turn should be useful for the rest of the games in the series, so if this is something that interests you, don't forget to subscribe. If you love Yakuza and Yakuza-related content, this channel was made for you. I try to produce 1 video per week and stream the games daily, so please drop a like if inclined, and I'll see you later in Kama Roadshow.